Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty, Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the new and improved Cannon Fire Podcast. Back at you today for episode 174. Might as well call this episode, I don't know, the one that got away from us. The night that technology killed. Rage Against the Machine. Something along those lines, because holy hell, the lengths that we have had to go through to get this episode to you. Originally planned to be a live stream on YouTube. Well, we made 2 or 3 attempts to try and get that live stream going. And just things did not work for us. My good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucks fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. Technical difficulties with Zoom, couple of accounts later, couple of invite links, nothing working. We finally figured it out, and that's when the live stream ultimately failed us. It has just been a wild night to kick things off, but some good news. It is a new era for CFP, as I'm sure you have seen. We got a new logo today. Shout out to the artist Steve Lamack, which is what I like to call him, over on Facebook. He does a lot of great Buccaneer designs, really top-notch stuff. And the craziest part is that he does it all as a hobby. I had reached out to him about commissioning a logo for our podcast. And I said, how much do you charge for that type of thing? And he's like, oh, no, I'll repurpose this design that I had made, make it your logo, and you can have it for free. So Steve is a pimp. Steve is a certified G, and as of right now, he is a great friend of the show. Thank you so much, Steve. It is officially the death of the flag logo, which we have carried since 2017, but all good things must come to an end. And I think as a franchise, when the Buccaneers win a Super Bowl, everything goes up a level, and that's exactly what this logo is. So go check it out. If you haven't seen it, you can see it on YouTube or social media. If you haven't seen it, then chances are you don't listen to the show. But yeah, welcome back. Episode 174. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. My good buddy Evan Wanish is here, and we are not alone. Mr. Bucks Nation over on YouTube, Mr. 10K, James Hill joins the show. Fellas, it has been quite a stressful evening.
I mean, it's been okay. I mean, we're just kind of, geez, technology has failed in every aspect, in every form. But it's fine because we're still here doing an episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast, and still here, still ready to talk about some Buccaneers football. So again, hey, thank you boys for having me on as always. I greatly appreciate that. I'm ready to talk about some Buccaneers.
Yeah. Listen, one last thing. I hate to poke the bear, but since we are in this type of mood tonight and we kind of need to lighten things up, James, you have the floor, buddy. You have all the room in the world to talk all the trash you want to Mr. Too Legit to Quit over there. I mean, James, you had a reputation for being the guy who shows up late to the party, and for a good 35 minutes we were waiting on old man Wanish to figure out that Zoom situation.
It's facts, I mean, I do feel bad because I don't want to make fun of an old man, old man Wanish here.
You're older than me. Are you kidding me?
I don't want to make fun of an old man.
Dude, you're the oldest one here. Shut up.
It is what it is. I mean, he might have been a little confused, might have forgotten to take his vitamins. I don't ever want to hear James, come on, man, you're always late, because the evidence is here. Not only was he late, but the technology botches that I saw. I mean, there's just so much. There's just so much, man. I mean, Rhett, I don't know if we have to put him in a home here at some point. I don't really know, but I was pretty disappointed, to say the least,
Yeah, I mean, I've always considered Evan a team first kind of guy, but the effort put in tonight, I think we might have to go to the film room, reevaluate some technique, kind of change change the way we approach things. What do you think, Evan? Before we really get into some Bucs news here.
Man, I wish this show wasn't PG. Well, here's the thing. Well, wait a minute. It's 8:03 p.m. James, you're 3 minutes late for bed. Yeah, you're 3 minutes late for bed, buddy. I actually, for one, I was trying to get on, so I was actually here, trying to, and I was communicating with you guys instead of, leaving 27 unread messages because I was sound asleep. When we knew that you had it and you had committed to doing an episode, but yet again you were stuck in your slumber, I guess, because like 9:30 a.m. to do a show is just way too early. That's not a thing.
No.
So
no,
probably,
it was 10 a.m. we agreed to do that show,
It was
right?
something, yeah. It was very reasonable, and he just didn't show up, and then decides to crash it midway through. So I'm here from the beginning, and then I didn't want to be a party crasher. So how far did you go? All you had to do was get out of bed and get onto a computer. I had to make a whole nother account to get here. So it was really dedicated. I'm still the face of the franchise, and guess what?
What?
I'm better. I'm better. I'm better in every other way, and there's nothing James can say. No, I'm the heel of the program, face of the franchise. That's what it is, Mr. Too Legit to Quit. And then James, I see that bed back there is probably looking awful comfy to you. So, I think don't take a nap on us.
Rhett's gonna have to put us both in an old home at this rate because we're both.
James, you were like 30 years old right now. You were older. You were the oldest one here. Okay, so calling me old man Wanish is I'm actually the youngest one here. Are you kidding me with this?
Listen, at this rate, I'm gonna have to put both of you on mute so we can get this show officially underway. But before we actually
wait, you're the one who started it.
I know. It's my fault. It's my fault. But listen, if you guys want to place any bets on the if you guys want to place any bets on the over-under for James' sleep schedule tonight, which I believe is at like 11 and a half hours, I'm definitely putting the hammer down on the over. Go check it out with our friends at betonline.ag. Listen, you know it. March Madness is in full swing right now, and if you put any money down on a little school called Oral Headman, you're probably sitting pretty right now. If you want to bet on the rest of the tournament, which I would not do because holy hell, everybody's bracket got busted this year, first round. But you can go check it out. It is the only place you should be betting on with betonline.ag. I'm sorry. They cover awards, TV shows, reality TV, outside of the realm of sports. You can really bet on anything over there. BetOnline has got hundreds of props with real-time odds on almost anything you can imagine. And, of course, they've always got the online 24-hour casino. Head to the website and use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BetOnline, your online sportsbook expert. Once again, betonline.ag, a very proud sponsor of the Cannon Fire podcast. So, believe it or not, we do have some news to get into regarding a couple of Buccaneer free agents, and it is the latest out of the swirl of rumors that we normally get at this time of year. I don't even know if I'd call it a rumor, but it kind of gets us a step closer to figuring out where these guys ultimately end up. And I'm referring to wide receiver Antonio Brown and running back Leonard Fournette. Now, there was a video, I believe it was an Instagram Live, of Antonio Brown. Leonard Fournette were working out together at one of his facilities. And a guy in the live stream says, I really hope you stay in Tampa. I hope you guys are able to figure it out. And Antonio Brown's response says, me and Playoff Lenny, we're going to get it figured out. We're going to work it out. And that's the latest we have got. As far as those guys go in their free agent market, Antonio Brown, we're still in kind of the same spot we were before. There is one team that is pretty clearly making a push for him, and that's Seattle. We've heard about Russell Wilson talking to the Seahawks to try and get a guy like Antonio Brown on their team. But other than that, you don't really know what his market is going to be. Kind of the same with Leonard Fournette. There are reportedly some teams interested. Seattle was one of those teams, but they did sign Chris Carson, which kind of leaves a question mark on if they're really still interested in a running back like Fournette. New England was another one of those teams you had heard. And, maybe some other teams that we just don't entirely know about on a surface level. But with everything going on with those guys, how do we feel, Evan? Are we confident with Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette coming back? Because you have to feel like the more time goes by, the more likely it seems like they stick around.
I would agree with that. See, here's the thing, though. a lot of people say, "Oh, the Seahawks have interest in Antonio Brown." Nobody ever said that. It just said that Russell Wilson wants Antonio Brown. That doesn't mean the Seahawks have interest. I mean, the Seahawks could look at the situation and go, like Russell, like we'll listen to you, but like we don't really have much interest in this particular
Well, they
player. It
definitely
could
won't listen
happen.
to him because they haven't gotten the guy in
Wow,
O-line to this point.
right. I mean, they did get Gabe Jackson, but other than that, being busy, the Raiders are just giving people away. So,
Yeah.
um, they don't believe in an offensive line. They're just gonna go with like 7 wide receivers and try to beat you that way. Pure like flag football stuff. And then with Fournette, you have heard teams. So Brown, you haven't really heard any teams that have had specific interest. We know the Bucs would like him back, but the Bucs would like him back at their price. With Fournette, you've heard the Patriots, you heard the Seahawks. Obviously, the Seahawks, you can take them off the board because they're not paying Leonard Fournette and Chris Carson. They're not doing that. I know Chris Carson signed a short-term deal, but that's not happening. And then obviously the Patriots. But then Ian Rappaport did say there are multiple teams that are still interested in Fournette. We don't know who those teams are. He did mention the Patriots. He said the Patriots have been mentioned. He said the Bucs would still like him back, but there's a few other teams. So if I had to guess, maybe a team like Pittsburgh, who's probably going to lose James Conner, maybe a team like Miami calls. It's still in state. Fournette might have some interest there. They have a need at running back. Maybe the Jets call. So I mean, I'm not necessarily reporting that those are the teams. I'm just saying maybe a few of those teams like that are the teams that are interested. So what you said is correct. The longer they sit, the more likely each day they sit, the more likely it is they come back, because each day they sit means that their price is likely to go down, even if it's just a little bit. Obviously, I don't know what price tag each guy has. I don't know. I would guess that Fournette has a little bit of a higher one than Brown does, because I think Brown understands the situation. But I just don't know. So just like you said, with each passing day, it seems more and more likely that they will come back. But I'm more sold on Brown coming back than Fournette still. I think there's, if you would have asked me this exactly a week ago, I would have said probably Fournette's definitely gone. Now I'm going to say it's a real possibility he's back, but I still am not ruling it out that he leaves, just because we have heard other teams being interested.
James, what do you think about this situation with these two guys? I mean, two pretty valuable players. Antonio Brown is someone we've talked about. He's learned his role, and that's what makes his market so tricky, because we've been saying for weeks that you aren't really going to know what teams are going to want to take a chance on him. And even right now, to this day, you don't really know, because the only team that you've heard talked about is Seattle, with Russell Wilson making that push. So what do you think for these two guys?
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. That is interesting that they are both working out together. And, an interesting quote is to say, for Antonio Brown to say, oh, we're going to figure it out. I mean, at the end of the day, it is also, I would say, mostly up to their agents to make those decisions for them. So, I mean, yeah, they'll figure it out. I mean, they'll figure it out one way or the other, I still don't, I've always been 50-50 on Antonio Brown as to whether or not he'll come back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I still do feel that way. And I still feel that Leonard Fournette probably, won't be back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But as you both said, the more time that this goes on, the more that free agency drags on. Yeah, I mean, the more likely that those guys do have a chance of coming back. Evan gave some really good teams that could be interested. The Jets, Seattle was interested, probably not anymore. The Patriots, maybe the Falcons could be interested since they don't have Todd Gurley anymore. But Antonio Brown's such a much more interesting case because, like you said, Rhett, like his market, how do you determine that? Not just his dollar value, but how do you determine which teams would be interested because of all the off-field stuff that he has going on? Honestly, there's a lot of teams who probably aren't even 100% sure if he's going to be able to play a full season next season. It's also probably another reason as to why the Buccaneers are, probably putting out an offer of, probably a lower value and just saying, hey, do whatever you want to do, make your own decision on this. I'm not saying that that's what's happening. If I had to guess at what was happening, that would be my guess. But yeah, the Leonard Fournette one, I expect him to actually have some legitimate interest from other teams. And probably him more likelier than not going away, or more likelier to go away. Antonio Brown, I could see him coming back, but also, the Seattle thing is a little bit weird to me. They don't have Josh Gordon anymore, so they do have a history of kind of taking on some troubled wide receivers who Russell Wilson likes.
He's balling it up in the fan control football league.
Right? So, I mean, but my point with that is that Russell Wilson kind of likes getting these guys who have like insane amounts of potential, but they've had some off-field concerns. Antonio Brown could be that next guy in line, for Seattle. We'll just have to wait and see with that. Like Evan said, not ruling anything out for both these guys coming back, but I'm still on the fence about both of them actually making a return.
I think the big difference between Antonio Brown and a guy like Josh Gordon, you had brought up that situation in Seattle where Russell Wilson wants to bring in a guy with some baggage. Listen, Antonio Brown, if he goes anywhere and plays his role like he did last season, he's obviously going to be continue to be what a lot of people have called one of the greatest wide receivers of the 2010s. Like, he is a great wide receiver, and the fact that there is not a big market on him, or at least a bigger market than what we have seen, which is nothing so far, is a little surprising to me, because I really do think that if there is a team that wants to take a chance on AB, if he's serious about reforming, the way he locks into playing football and not really doing much else to get himself in trouble, I think they can get a great player. And obviously, if the Buccaneers keep him around, all of that factors into that decision as well. But ultimately, when it comes to where I think he ends up, Leonard Fournette, it's a different story. I do think he garners some interest from another team needing a running back, and he ultimately goes elsewhere. But I have a better feeling now about Antonio Brown returning to Tampa Bay than I did this time a week ago, this time 2 weeks ago. You still don't really know what that market is, but as time passes, you got to feel a little bit better. Now, another guy that I wanted to talk about, another free agent. You don't really have to deal with an agent on this one because he is representing himself, and I guess that's worked out great to this point because he is one of the richest players in NFL history based off of his contract. It's Big D tackle Ndamukong Suh. Now, some other deals the Buccaneers made this last week. They re-signed Raheem Nunez-Roches to a 2-year, $5 million deal. So a nice multi-year deal for Nacho as he gets himself a little bit of a raise. They also brought back Ryan Suckup, 3-year deal worth $12 million. $6.25 million in guaranteed money and a cap hit this year of $2.8. But as far as Ndamukong Suh goes, that's another guy on that list that a lot of people are clamoring for, and it'll be pretty telling of how the Bucs are going to address that D tackle position. But as far as Ndamukong Suh goes, I've heard a couple of reports that people are almost certain the Bucs have made an offer to him at this point, but they're kind of just waiting it out. Evan, how do you see this playing out with number 93?
I mean, if you guys remember, Suh had hit free agency last year. He was an unrestricted free agent from Tampa, and he had hit free agency last year. And I think it wasn't right away. It was like a week and a half, 2 weeks after free agency started that he had signed. So, and if you remember his first contract with the Buccaneers, he signed that in May. He really likes to take his time. It's not something that he really likes to rush. And I mean, why would you? It's certainly worked out for him, just like you said. So, I believe that he's been represented by an agent his whole career, except last offseason he fired his agent and then just sort of went solo. And then he signed a deal with the Bucs a few days later. And I believe right now he's with Bus Cook, who's an agent, but I don't believe that he's handling any negotiations. I believe Suh is the one that is like really in the driver's seat there. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't really think there's much debate here. I think he's going to come back. He's another guy you haven't heard much interest from around the league. You haven't heard anybody really say, "Oh, there's some interest in Suh." There's some people out there. I think it's kind of assumed he'll be back. So I think that's the safe bet. May have to wait a few more days, but I think it's a safe bet.
James, what do you think about Suh?
Yeah, I think he'll re-sign in the next 4 days. I have no sources or indication to warrant that.
Very specific.
But Evan, you said he waited a little bit. So while you were making your points, Evan, I looked up when Suh re-signed last year, and it was March 26th. It's March 22nd today. In the next 4 days, I'm going to say it. In the next 4 days, Suh will re-sign. Okay? That's my guess. That's my. It's not even a bold take. I don't know. But
just say he'll re-sign on the 26th, so that way you get a bold date. It would just be a year. He's waiting for the year.
He'll re-sign on the 25th.
Okay. Okay, so the 25th is
on
a
the
what? Is that
25th. Listen, if you
a
get
Thursday?
this wrong,
It's a Thursday.
if you get this wrong, which I feel like you very well might, it's going to make us sound bad, and we're not going to be able to have you on the show anymore, James.
Oh crap!
You can't just
That's
Babe Ruth
that's
it.
how confident. Oh, that's how confident he is. He's putting his appearances on this show on the line.
I'll
Hey.
wear my pirate costume so I'm in disguise so you guys don't know it's me. But anyway, well, yeah, we're talking about Sue. Like, yeah, he's one of those guys who I think everybody expected him to be back, especially whenever he came out and said, I've already talked with Jason Light. I've already talked with Tom Brady. I want to win another championship. I'm not retiring. And yeah, let's go. So I think at that point, everybody thought, like, yeah, no matter how long it takes, he will eventually come back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I still have a firm belief in that. I've seen some people on other outlets and sites and whatnot talk about other guys who could be potential replacements for Sue. Geno Atkins is out there right now. There's some other veteran defensive linemen that are out there as well, including the draft to replace Sue. I don't think that's going to end up happening. I think Sue will be back. Honestly, if the Buccaneers were to draft somebody to replace anybody, I would say maybe it'd be like a Will Golston, who might be like a cap casualty, but even that I don't know if I see happening. Sue's been very productive while he's been here. I was very happy that I was wrong about some of his character concerns coming into the team. He's been absolutely great. Not stepping on anybody's ankles, not doing any of this stuff that we saw him do earlier on in his career. And he's really been great. He's been a phenomenal mentor for Vita Vea. He's helped out both in run defense, especially, and a little bit in pass rushing as well. So I'm very happy to see that. And yeah, honestly, this most recent season was even better than the first year he had with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is great. I don't know if he's on that TB12 method right now or what, but Sue's still playing at a pretty good level. He improved from year 1 to year 2. I'm not saying he's going to improve from year 2 to year 3, but it gives you hope that even if he does fall off a little bit due to his age, it might not be as big of a fall off as people are thinking it might be. So overall, yeah, I think a deal gets done. Like I said, the 25th, I don't have sources. I'm not saying, I'm not pulling something here, but I'm saying the 25th, my guess is Sue will resign.
I ultimately do think Ndamukong Suh ends up re-signing, sticking around in Tampa Bay for at least one more season. But let's talk about the possibility of maybe the Buccaneers moving on from Ndamukong Suh. Brought it up briefly. Couple of guys you had named to go after in free agency. Another guy that has popped up lately, I've seen Greg Allman made a good point. Name to watch with the Bucs and Brady is former Patriots defensive lineman Lawrence Guy. He's currently visiting with the Dolphins. He played with Brady in 2019. So, I mean, he's got those connections there. But, let's talk about this draft class, because I don't know if you guys checked out the latest Pewter Report podcast, but they had Warren Sapp on there, and he really did not mince words when it came to describing this defensive tackle class of 2021 coming up in the draft. There were a couple of names they threw out there that he either wasn't familiar with or just didn't like very much. And I wanted to get your thoughts overall on how the Buccaneers would address that position. Let's say Suh moves on. Are you more tempted to go after a guy in free agency that you know is going to fill in that spot a little bit better? Is there someone that you have in mind that they might want to go at 32 if the right guy is there? We've also talked about, all the other things they can pick with at 32. But when addressing that D tackle position in the absence of Ndamukong Suh, if it comes to that, what do you think, Evan?
Well, I personally think if Lawrence Guy is starting on your defensive line, you got an issue, because I think he could be brought in. He's a piece that's brought in with Sue as a depth piece. They still do need some depth on defensive line. So I think that's what sort of Allman was talking about. And also, I know obviously Rhett didn't say it was a report, but that is not a report. The Bucs, as far as we know,
no, it's just a name to watch if we're throwing names out there. Then
yeah, it's basically, how like when Bruce Arians got there and stuff, and you look at players that played for Arians and players that played for Todd Bowles. Now you're looking at players that have played just with Tom Brady. Like Lawrence Guy was on the defensive side of the ball, and it's just okay, he's on the same team as Tom Brady. That could work. So it's possible. We'll see, but I think Lawrence Guy would be more of a depth piece. Now, if you're talking about a guy like Geno Atkins, yeah, you bring him in to replace Sue. You're not signing both Sue and Atkins. I just don't think that's very realistic. So that's your best bet. If Sue moves on, that's your best bet to just go after Atkins if you want just a plug and play guy. Because yeah, the first round class. I mean, I don't Warren Sapp. I don't think he likes very much of anything. But like, I mean, he's kind of right. I mean, he said Christian Barmore was not even a third round talent. I disagree with that. I mean, I don't think Christian Barmore is like a elite prospect, but I think he's a first round talent. But after that, there's I think there's some second round talents, but I mean, it goes Barmore and then it drops like big time. And that drop, is going to lead teams to maybe overdraft Barmore. So he's not likely to be there to 32. Are you willing to draft a Davion Nixon? Actually, Davion Nixon, he's a great dude. I got an interview coming out with him soon, a one-on-one interview with him on the page. Or do you want a Levi Ozarike from Washington? Those are your two next guys, I think. Do you want him at 32? Like, I don't know if you do. I know James, just put out a 7-round mock draft. Had, I believe, Jay Tufeli, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Jay Tufeli in the second round, which would be acceptable, but he's not drafting him in the first round. There was a reason that he went, with a particular running back in the first round, and it's not all the one that you're thinking. So go check that out. But that's a plug for you. How about that? And then it's tough because if you do lose Sue, I think you're in a position where you almost have to replace him with a plug and play guy.
Yeah.
And you're not sure what Atkins' price is. We're not even saying Atkins has interest in the Bucs or the Bucs have interest in him. We're not saying any of that. We're just talking if Sue goes, Atkins would be basically the best available guy. Yeah, because I just don't think you can look to if Barmore's there at 32, yeah, sure, and he'd be a suitable replacement for Sue. But the fact that he is the best defensive tackle, or I guess defensive lineman, I mean, in this defense, he wouldn't necessarily be a defensive tackle per se. But if you're looking at him, everybody else is going to be looking at the weak defensive line class too and say, okay, he's the best one, and he's a first-round talent. All these other guys are second-round talent. So if we're sitting there at, let's say, I don't even know who's at 26. I think it's Cleveland. Cleveland at 26. Okay, we're going to pick him, and then he's gone. So you can't really count on it, and the options are very limited in the draft. So I do think if they were to lose Sue, which I think is very unlikely at this point, so I don't think Bucs fans have to worry too much. But I do think they would look for outside veteran help instead of relying on the draft.
One more guy. Sorry, I kind of what. One more guy I wanted to talk about as we kind of wrap things up here. The Buccaneers made it official that they had re-signed Rob Gronkowski to that one-year deal we had talked about. He had a press conference today where he talked to the media, and I wanted to kind of, retouch on this subject because it's got to give you hope towards the 2021 season, how Gronk has been feeling since, coming back, playing a full season again, not getting injured, and winning a damn Super Bowl to cap it all off. He feels pretty good, and one of the things that was brought up was just how he was, a shell of himself towards the end of his career. Well, towards the end of his, first run in New England. Like, after that last Super Bowl victory, he told stories of how he could barely walk, and I remember we talked about that with Chris Gronkowski. That tight end room, the way that they measure up right now, what are your expectations for Gronk next season, and do you think he can really go anywhere from here? Because he had a pretty damn good first year, but obviously you got to think he's going to be off to a little bit faster of a start next season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really good to see Gronkowski, have a full off season and just a regular season just recently under his belt now as well. Was watching him throughout the regular season. There were some points where the dude looked like he was running through quicksand. I mean, to be completely honest, he looked slow at certain points. Still is a freak athlete. We all know this, but it just looked like he still wasn't 100% in terms of, I guess, football shape. There was that rumor, I guess, or talk that he faked some off-season workouts, whenever he first got on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by wearing different shirts during sprint running and stuff like that, and to simulate different days, I guess. I have no idea the legitimacy of that. That's just what I saw reported
No,
somewhere.
it was true. Gronk came out and said it. We talked to Chris about it. It had come out the week of the Super Bowl that he basically cheated the system. But I mean, who cares?
Right. So I'm hoping now for this time around, and obviously he will, especially with Tom Brady with him, he'll be ready to go. He didn't miss a single game. Very rarely was off the field for, long stretches of time. I think that even exceeded Gronkowski's expectations of what he was going to do throughout the regular season. Played all throughout the playoffs as well. I mean, he did a really good job. So now having that season and having this off season as well to get even more ready, I'm excited to see what he does. I believe he came out and said he's just going to continue to do 1-year deals at this point in his career and has to be very conscious about his health right now, which, yes, of course, that all makes sense because, like you said, Rhett, I mean, that last Super Bowl he had with the New England Patriots, the dude was in tears because of how hurt he was and playing with all of his injuries. I mean, that sucks. You hate to see that. So I think he will be healthier. I think he will be better physically. And I'm really excited to see him pairing up with O.J. Howard, who's going to be returning from injury as well, and some of the other guys in that tight end room.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I really think that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. A little bit of a shorter episode tonight, but, I mean, we tried to go live. That didn't really work out, and we were only catching up on a little bit of the latest Buccaneer news. It's slowing down. It really is. The Buccaneers got the big deals out of the way. As of right now, you're kind of stringing along to see who's going to stick around on this team. Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, and Ndamukong Suh. Couple of casualties so far. Offensive lineman Joe Haeg signed with the Steelers. And then Buccaneers lost safety Andrew Adams to the Eagles. So, there's going to be
which
a couple
makes me
more.
wonder if they're going to look for a depth safety. Like I kind of wonder that if they're going to look for that fourth safety, or if they like a guy like Javon Hagan or I know his name's been floated out there. I forget Dakota Dixon, who the Bucs used to really liked in training camp in 2019, I believe, and then he ended up getting hurt. So I'm not sure. Maybe they add a veteran there. I wouldn't expect a big name, but maybe they add a veteran there. I think you're gonna see him with Ndamukong Suh, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette. Still all quiet on the James White front. Now it was reported that I don't believe we even talked about this. Adam Schefter did say that the Buccaneers had reached out to James White. So they at least have shown some interest. I think that's only if Fournette leaves, though. I think I'm pretty confident saying that if Fournette's back, they're not going to sign Leonard Fournette and James White. I really don't see that. So obviously, then Blaine Gabbert, he'll be back. And then you guys like Josh Wells, possibly, especially since losing Joe Haeg now, I think that maybe becomes a little bit more of a priority to find some of that offensive line depth. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, it's slowing down, but I do think you're going to see a lot of stuff resolved this week. It's Monday right now when we're recording this, so I think maybe by Friday or Saturday, I think some of these guys will be signed.
Absolutely. Before we go, I want to remind you that support for CFP is brought to you by eBay. As the original sneaker marketplace, eBay is the place to go cop the pair that you have been eyeing for a while. Whether rare dead stock or the latest release, you can find the exact shoe that you're looking for. With eBay's authenticity guarantee, your sneakers are meticulously inspected by independent professional authenticators. A team of experienced sneaker authenticators verify the box, the logo, stitching, and dozens of other inspection points. And each sneaker also receives an authenticity guarantee tag that includes a digital stamp of authenticity. Plus, it also protects sellers with a verified return process. So for all you sellers out there, they have eliminated selling fees as well for sneakers over $100, making it free to sell or flip your collection. So go to ebay.com/sneakers today. Once again, that's eBay, the world's best destination for discovering great value and unique selection. With that being said, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for checking out this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. With this new logo, this new look, you can still expect the same great content, and hopefully next time we do this, we can bring it to you live over on our YouTube channel. If you are watching on our YouTube, we really do appreciate you guys, and sorry we weren't able to get the live stream up and going, but, shit happens, I guess. It'll be fixed, and we'll be coming to you live very, very soon. If you're listening on our podcast outlets, we do appreciate you as well. Anywhere you download a podcast is where you can find us. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Podbean, Google Podcasts, all of that good stuff. You can go check us out at Cannon Fire Podcast. Also, check out the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show and, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. You can follow my co-host on Instagram at Bucks_Daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find our special guest, James Hill. Go check him out on YouTube at Mr. Bucks Nation. Just recently surpassed 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. That is quite a feat, buddy. And we talked about it on the last week's show, but you rewarded your subscribers with quite the sea shanty. I got to commend you for it. The music video was great. From top to bottom, that production was pretty damn good. Good going, James.
Thank you, man. Greatly appreciated. It was a blast to record. It was a blast to sing. Technology is amazing because it even makes me sound like a good singer. So, yeah, very happy, getting over that 10K mark. And, yeah, it's going to be a lot more content coming out here as the offseason chugs on.
There you go, buddy. Last but not least, you can check out myself, Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, Rhettakus. If you follow me, I will follow you back. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, Rhett, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish, and our special guest, James Hill. We will talk to you guys soon with some more Buccaneer news. Until then, go Bucks.